Let me welcome attorney Karen Evans, who is with the Cochran Firm, and the firm's namesake and I were good friends, and he used to come on the show all the time. Boy, do I miss Johnny Cochran.
We all do.
But it's good, and please talk directly into the microphone. It really will pick up a lot easier. And then I also would like to introduce with us here, and that is Marie Mills, the daughter of Mr. Mills. Let me see if for people maybe across the country who may know about the story, may not know about the story. Your father this happened in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
What side of town was it?
It was in the northeast side.
As close as you can get, please.
It was northeast Washington.
Northeast Washington, D.C.
Yes.
What was going on that day?
Typical Saturday for me and my dad, running some errands. When we came out of the computer store, Dad collapsed, and right across from a fire station in the 1300 block of Rhode Island Avenue Northeast. After the 911 call was placed to several citizens went across the street to seek immediate help for my dad. Mm-hmm. And they were told that they needed to call the dispatch center. They were told various reasons why they would not come out of the fire station to help my dad.
And time-wise, what are we talking about? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour? What was the time frame?
Before the first medical unit was flagged down by the Metropolitan Police, it had been approximately 20 minutes.
Did you know what was happening at the time?
No, sir, I didn't.
Had no idea what was. All you know is that he had collapsed.
He had collapsed.
Was he conscious?
He was barely conscious, not breathing too well, and I was inside the computer store helping to give the information.
And he
to
was
911
outside,
with some citizens.
With like friends and talking and that type of.
Well, no, we were walking back to the car.
I
We were
see.
on our way. It was a shopping center that we
I
were
see.
in, and we were leaving to go back home. We had dropped our computer off to be repaired at the computer store.
Let me go then to Miss Evans, Attorney Evans, on this one. It would seem to me that this is almost an open and shut case. I mean, the way it's been reported, there's been a hearing. Although it's fascinating, it wasn't a public hearing with the employees, correct?
That's correct. You would think this would be an open and shut case, but it's going to be fraught with legal complications and likely legal battles. And as I have counseled the family, the likelihood that we are going to be able to prevail in any kind of litigation against the district is slim. But
Why is that?
Because of what's known as the public duty doctrine. Most people don't know about it, and frankly, before I became a lawyer, I didn't know about it. But essentially what this is a law that, a doctrine that exists in many jurisdictions around the country. So this is not an issue that's going to be limited to Washington, D.C., but the way that the law works in Washington is that under the public duty doctrine is that the city and firefighters and D.C. Police Department, but let's talk about firefighters, is that they owe a duty to the public at large, but they don't owe a duty to any individual person.
What does that mean?
Well, what that means is that they don't owe a duty to you. That means if you call 911 and they don't come, they don't have any liability. That means to you that if you call 911 and they show up and they do a half job.
Yeah, I mean, this is satellite radio, so I can say it, a half-assed job, but go ahead.
So, and they do
excuse the language, ladies, but you probably have heard worse since this case has begun.
And they do half their job,
yeah.
And as long as they don't make you worse, but they don't help you, there's no liability.
Can you repeat that again? Because this is a national show, folks need to understand this may not just exist in Washington, D.C.
Exactly.
They don't have a responsibility to you as an individual.
That's right, to the public at large.
But the public at large.
Yes. I think I'm part of the public at large.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that kind of law. But it sounds like to me what it is somebody put together a bill and got it passed that in essence protects them against individual lawsuits.
Right, and the basis of it is to protect the city and the efficient running of government, so that they don't have to worry about being hauled into court for frivolous lawsuits all the time, so that it interferes with the efficient operation of government.
Well, that makes sense to a degree.
That makes a lot of sense, but in situations like this, where you have gross negligence, a complete dereliction of duty, you should be accountable for this.
When you went to who went to the door of the fire department?
There were several citizens that had tried to assist by going over, knocking on the door.
So it wasn't just a family member; it was several people that kept going over there and knocking
on the door.
And all you were asking, could someone at the fire department come? And when we say coming across the street, what are we talking about? I mean, literally across the street.
Literally across the street. It's about 4 lanes of traffic,
Right.
4 lanes with an island, so it's probably about a total of 5 lanes, directly across from the fire station to the shopping center.
And so what? And because I'm here locally, I know what they said happened. But tell the audience what you were told.
We were told a number of things. They were told that they had to be dispatched by the dispatch center. They were told that they had to wait for the lieutenant that was the highest ranking officer in the fire station to decide to go. They were told that it was against their policy and procedure to come across the street. So several people, like I said, I know they went over there at least 4 or 5 times trying to get some type of assistance.
And we're going to say something.
And what we know is that there were 5 firefighters who had the medical training in that facility to help Mr. Mills.
Inside. And this happened when? What date was this?
This was Saturday, January the 25th, 2014.
All right. Now, in Washington, D.C., it's interesting, and I've never been able to figure this out. If there's a medical issue, like in EMS, you send the fire truck too.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if that happens in most cities.
They went to the units that were dispatched on the call were dispatched to the northwest quadrant of the city instead of northeast.
Instead of across the street.
So
they ended up being called. Somebody said, okay, then I'll call.
Yes.
And they called.
But
they dispatched the EMS.
Well, we called first. The initial call was placed before people started knocking on the door.
Really?
And that's what they were telling them, that we've already called 911.
You've already called.
A call had already gone into 911.
And so the people across the street at the firehouse apparently didn't get the call.
They did not get dispatched on the calls.
Because it went to the wrong sector of town.
It's my understanding that the dispatch center did not follow the protocol of the computer system. It said send a unit across the street. Not 1 time, not 2 times, but 3 times. And they chose to send a different unit.
And your father passed away when?
He passed away a short time later at Washington Hospital Center.
Of heart attack?
Of heart attack.
And had they come across the street, is your contention that they probably could have saved him?
Yes, because they say seconds matter when a person is in cardiac distress.
Absolutely.
And
these firefighters had the ability to perform CPR and to defibrillate any kind of heart rhythm. And what we know from the medical evidence is that at the time that first responders actually arrived on the scene, Mr. Mills was in what's called ventricular fibrillation. And at that time, if you defibrillate, and if you've been, when it first happens, you can save many people.
Yeah, and we should point out that attorney, and I didn't mention this, but let me make sure that I do. You have also practiced malpractice.
I am a medical malpractice lawyer,
attorney,
and also a nurse by training.
A nurse by training.
Yes.
Okay, so you speak with the experience and the training. So where do you go from here? And there's been some very interesting news stories. I want people, again, across the country to realize. The latest one was the fire chief was at a public hearing, and is this your brother?
Yes.
That went and demanded answers. I know that there was a hearing, and it's usually open to the public. But then the fire department, the city decided they were going to close this hearing, and it dealt with this whole issue, and it was closed. Media wasn't allowed in. I take it the public wasn't allowed in.
Media wasn't allowed in, nor was the family allowed in. Myself being a witness also was not allowed in. They held us to the same ruling that they ruled with the media. safety concerns.
And this was after the day before the hearing. There had been a press release announcing the hearing.
So and when you send out a press release announcing the hearing, that invites the press to be there.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So where do you go from here, Attorney Evans?
Well, our plan at this point and initially was to kind of allow the process to work itself out, because what this family wants more than anything is for someone to be held accountable for these events and to make sure that steps are taken so that this doesn't happen to any other family. We had planned that at some point we would investigate litigation. And it looks like now that's going to be our only recourse. We were shut out of the hearing, so we have very little knowledge about what actually happened in the hearing. We have been provided at our own cost a copy of a portion of the transcript of the hearing.
You had to pay for that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's ridiculous.
A portion of it.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
We've had to pay for that, so we only know a little bit about what happened actually in the hearing. Tommy Wells held an oversight hearing. Nothing, to our knowledge, has come out of that. We've had very little contact with the council and the mayor since the initial publicity about it, when everyone expressed outrage that such a thing like this could happen in the nation's capital. So at this point, we are investigating and making preparations to file a lawsuit, because we know that lawsuits make change.
Yes, and of course Johnny Cochran was known for not only getting reparations for families, but the one thing I always appreciated about Attorney Cochran was that he incorporated in it sometimes major change in municipalities.
Right.
Yes.
And so it changed the culture of a city. Yes. That went along with it, so that it wasn't just one family or one individual being compensated for whatever loss, but it changed the whole culture.
Yes.
And that's the sense of what I get from family. And I must tell you, I was at a candidates' night for the mayoral candidates at the synagogue, historic synagogue. Mm-hmm. This was the last one, and I remember your supporters were across the street asking justice for your father.
Yes.
And tell you what disappointed me more than anything else: not one question came up about this case.
And we submitted a question.
One question.
My brother and I submitted several questions on the card,
and they did not ask.
It was
not asked by the loose lips. He's the guy with the city paper, mm-hmm. and he's the one picking the questions. And not one question was posed.
Not one question.
We were very disappointed by that as well.
That's ridiculous. And here was you've got to protest. As a matter of fact, it was what made evening news. Mm-hmm. And it was the last debate for the mayoral campaign. So finally, before we go, go to a break. Let me have you heard anything from the winner of the primary, Councilman Bowser?
I have not.
Not. I mean, she's expressed her condolences to our family and those kind of things. She was present at the oversight hearing, to question the parties that were there, from the fire chief, the deputy mayor, and I think it was the supervisor for communications. But I haven't heard anything since then.
All right, let's take a break and talk about what is the possible solution here. I don't know. Do we change the law by introducing maybe repealing the situation? I still find that wording amazing. Let me ask you, are you in a position to stay over, or do you have
to?
Yes.
Okay, so all right, fine. And I don't want to take up, I know you have other interviews that you might have to do, but whenever you have to go, let us know,
sure,
and we'll understand. And then I'll open up the phones, too, 1-866-801-8255, 1-866-801-TALK. And I know folks around the country might be surprised that this could happen in your city, in your county, and you may not have a recourse. I obviously, when I heard about this and the news story first broke here, I have a tendency to say, oh, well, that's an open and shut case, but then when you look at the law, you realize it's not.
Exactly.
It's not an open and shut case. So the question is, what recourse now do you have? So we'll talk about it, and people in D.C., you may have questions. Obviously, you've been following this case. We'll continue here with Madison on Urban View. Don't go anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the Eagle's Nest, here is Joe Madison.
Marie Mills, the daughter of Medric Cecil Mills, is with us, and of course you know about this case, and they're live in studio along with attorney Karen Evans. First-time caller from Tennessee, Chris. Go ahead. You had a question or a comment? Is he there? Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did click him on. Okay. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. How are you, Mr. Madison?
I'm fine.
All right. I'm a paramedic firefighter from out of Tennessee.
All right.
And all across the nation, we are watching this, and it's very unfortunate. The one thing that I found, well, I wanted to answer one of your questions. Most of the time when they send a fire truck to an EMS call, it's because they have trained personnel, EMT or a paramedic that's on that truck that can assist in medical emergencies until the ambulance gets there. In most cities, ambulances are very busy, so they put an EMT or they put a paramedic on the fire truck,
right,
that will respond ahead of the ambulance and render medical care.
Okay.
The guy, for what reason, I don't know why the guy said it was against their policy and procedure to not go out of the firehouse or not self-dispatch. I don't get it, because they have a state license and there's a duty to act. And I'm just confused by what the attorney was saying.
Well, Attorney Evans, you heard the question. How would you respond to that?
Well, we only know in terms of the gentleman who said that they could not act. We know that the first person contacted at the fire station was a rookie. He was in training, and so in the internal investigation report that was leaked to the press, we know that he says that he was never trained about what to do when someone approached the fire station directly, and so that was a contributing factor to the incident. I can understand your confusion, because I frankly don't understand why it is that the simple notion that you're a firefighter, you have EMT training, you have the equipment and the necessary knowledge to aid someone, why you would not come to their aid. I just don't understand that as a fundamental principle.
Now, he mentioned, the first thing came to my mind, he mentioned, you did, Chris, that like he's from Tennessee, so there's a state law. Our state licensing. Of course, we're the District of Columbia.
Right.
And we're not a state. I don't know if that's a factor or not.
But they have to be certified,
yeah.
As EMT.
That, their state license, that supersedes department policy.
Interesting.
They have a duty to act. When he knew that information and he related to the highest ranking officer who did have the decision to whether they leave. In her mind, in some cases, sometimes that person is not an EMT.
Right.
So, I don't. That's probably where the little gray area is.
Yeah. So let me stop you for a moment, Chris, just for sake of time. You mentioned straight up on when I came to you that you guys are watching this all across the country. You're watching this case. Why? Let me explain that to people. Why is it precedent setting? What are they telling you?
Well, there's so many failures that we see in D.C., and D.C. is supposed to be like, the capital. It's supposed to be like the cream of the crop, and it's not. It's a system that we're looking at that it's terrible. There seems to be no concern about doing EMS within the fire department. There's just everything fire. They want to do, it sounds like in this case, they didn't want to roll out that door because it wasn't a fire.
Exactly.
You have some people that, some of the guys, there's a lot of great EMT firefighters, there's a lot of great paramedic firefighters that will do their job. But you have a lot of guys that, for some reason, if it's a medical emergency, there's just no priority to it. They don't care.
Really?
If it's a fire, oh, man, they'll jump on that truck and get out of there. If somebody would have came across the street and said, hey, there's a fire across the street,
and that's what was said.
I guarantee you.
That's what was said to me. Somebody said if you would have set a piece of paper on fire, they probably would have ran across the street without even getting in the truck to assist.
And, nationally, fires are going down, and most of your large departments are switching to the role of providing EMS, because fires on a national level are every year they're going down. There was a big study in Los Angeles where they have this massive fire department, but they're mostly making EMS runs.
Well, I got to tell you, that's what the attorney Evans is nodding her head. But that's what I've interviewed the fire chief, and that's exactly what he told me is, and it's because of again building material. You have fire extinguishers. You've got different safety factors, and it is causing the incidences of fire to go down. And a lot of the money and emphasis now is on medicine or medical emergency.
Especially with the Affordable Health Care Act, there's going to be a huge emphasis on providing EMS and kind of shifting resources to provide that service. And in D.C., we are watching this because it's like, oh, my God, this is terrible.
Interesting.
This is terrible.
All right. Thanks for the call. Anybody want to respond to this? And are you getting the same? You're getting the response from around the country that
same thing. Same sorts of responses from firefighters. I've gotten any number of calls from firefighters who first want to express condolences to the family, and then to speak about their embarrassment about the efforts that were displayed by these firefighter EMTs. And we also have had many discussions about the fact that that here in the district, the firefighters and the paramedics, they're all under the same roof. And that apparently and I don't know this for a fact, but this is what's been reported to me by numerous firefighters, is that there's a lot of conflict within the fire department here in the city about EMT duties versus firefighting duties. And there's some debate about whether or not they should all be under the same umbrella. And I think that all of these issues, and then this culture of concern about exactly how we go about carrying out our business, I think that is impacting the public safety. I got a call from a firefighter who claims that he was disciplined for he was driving a fire truck en route to training, not to a fire, and he came across a man whose house was on fire. He called it in and said, I'm going to stop and aid. And he did stop and aid, but he was told not to, and he apparently was disciplined for that. And so it's that kind of culture. How can you be disciplined for being a firefighter and fighting a fire? I mean, that sounds crazy to me.
That's like a policeman's. But see, this is what's crazy. If I'm a police officer and I'm going to the game, and I see a crime, I'm not supposed to intercede because it's not my district, or I'm supposed to wait for what? I mean, is that what? And you're part of public safety. A police officer is. I mean, that would be crazy. So if that was a police, all right, this is just me talking. So if that was a police precinct across the street, and your father, instead of having a heart attack, was being robbed, and somebody ran across the street and knocked on the precinct door and said, there's a robbery taking place across the street. I got to go get my supervisor to see whether or not I should go over and stop the robbery?
That's what we're hearing.
That's what we're hearing.
That's what we're hearing about fire EMS.
And even more troubling, if they did nothing under the hypothetical that you pose, no responsibility.
Nobody's responsible.
No recourse. That's not right. And I don't think that the law, I understand the reason for the public duty doctrine.
I don't, you're a lawyer.
Well, as a lawyer, I understand it.
Right.
But as it relates to frivolousness, folks just
sure,
finding
that part
I understand.
Yes.
But where we have situations where people are dying because of failures to act, that's a problem, and the law was not intended to address that.
Let's go to California. David, hi. Go ahead, David. You're on with our guest, Maria Mills, and also attorney Karen Evans. Did I click on? He dropped. All right. Jesse from D.C., hi.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
And your guest there. I'm sorry about the condolences about their family. I was going to send mine, but also I want to ask two questions, Joe. First of all, have they communicated with the chief of the fire department? I guess he doesn't get involved, but here's the hearing is going on about those people, that did not respond in that station. And second of all, are they going to get the law changed? Are they fighting to change the law in the city council here in D.C.?
All right. All right, two good questions. And again, let's talk about what has been, and I'll piggyback on top of his question. If I were mayor, I tell you quite honestly, and maybe it's because I hung out too much with Johnny Cochran, but if I were mayor, I would be calling everyone into the room and saying, look, this is an embarrassment.
And that did happen, to my understanding, the first day. Everybody was called in off administrative leave, any type of leave that they were on. My family was told that they were going to have an investigation and that they would be prepared to terminate and or fire anybody that did not do their duties that day. However, here we are in April, and I can tell you nobody has been disciplined in that fire station. The dispatch center people received, my understanding from an outside source, was 2 days suspension, 3 days suspension, and a 10-day suspension.
And the lieutenant who's in charge is allowed, she's retiring?
She's going to retire, but she's the only one that has gone before the fire trial board. And my understanding was 5 to 7 business days is what the report told us. They had to get their findings to the chief. At the meeting with the chief last week, he made it seem like it could take whenever. They don't operate on nobody's schedule.
See, this is where
nobody is over top of them. He said he has to stay out of it. That's the same question that I...
He has to stay out, but he's the chief.
He's the chief, but he says that per the labor contract and the union contract, this trial board consists of 2 battalion chiefs and I think 2 firefighters. Where anywhere else in the country that I've researched so far, trial boards have at least 1 to 2 civilians and at least a paralegal or a law degree.
See, I guess what I was saying is, after you've gone through that, this is when you say, look, okay, let's all get behind closed doors and find out what does the family want? What needs to be changed here? Because we're all embarrassed by this. This is, it's beyond finger pointing.
Yes,
that's the point we're making here. It's beyond finger pointing. So this is part 2 of his question. Do you move to change the law?
Yes, we want to move to change the law, and we are making efforts behind the scenes to work toward that goal, because we think that, given that, first of all, the fact that someone came to the fire station for aid and was turned away and someone died as a result of that, this is not the first time that this has happened.
That's true, right.
And so it's clear to me, anyway, that there needs to be a law that says that if you knock on the fire station door, you have to help.
It's just like there's a law, and if I'm not mistaken, isn't there a law that if you've taken a child to a fire station, that they have to take that child. A newborn, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. It's supposed to provide a safe haven. So if you don't want the baby, don't do something negative to the child. Just drop it off to a hospital, to a fire station.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's the law in D.C., but I am aware of that principle. And I think the same thing should apply here. I think we need a law on the books that says that if you knock on the fire station's door and there's a medical emergency and someone is suffering catastrophic injuries as a result of that they should be required to help. That seems common sense to me, and it's a common expectation of citizens and visitors.
Ernest, where are you calling from?
Pennsylvania.
From Pennsylvania? Go ahead, Ernest.
I just wanted to comment on the situation with firefighters and EMS. I guess to give a little bit of insight on that, a lot of the controversy comes from the act of helping. Let's say, for instance, there's a car accident where the person actually needs to be rescued out of the car.
Right.
The EMS portion of it actually takes precedence over the firefighter portion, although the firefighters do the actual work of extricating.
Right.
so there lies the controversy in a lot of houses.
I got you. Yeah, because the firefighters have the equipment to do it.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other thing is that if to help out, I believe there was a court case coming out of Tennessee years ago that described duty to act based upon what was the information provided at the time. Mm. And I believe it was, if I can't quote me on this correct, I believe it was Graham versus Tennessee, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually went to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and so when I need to take a break, but let's talk about this in changing the law, because what I'm hearing Ernest say from Pennsylvania, you may have legal precedent here with the understanding of duty to act, and that's sort of what you were just explaining.
That's what I was talking about. Pennsylvania precedent would not be binding in the District of Columbia. Yeah. So I would take a look at that. But we have researched that, and I have many lawyers working on this issue, and I have consulted with many lawyers around the country about this issue. So I think I'm very well versed in the law on this, and there may be some avenues which we intend to explore to seek recourse for this family. And when we file the lawsuit, what we're going to ask is that the city not invoke the public duty doctrine in this case, to show good faith and let the legal process take its course. Because just because you file a lawsuit, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. But you should have the right to seek recourse. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what this family wants.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this. I want to thank both of you for coming in and giving us extended amount of time. Anything in closing, Ms. Mills, that you want this audience to know?
Write your council person, reach out to the fire chief, the mayor, anybody that you can think of in the city of Washington, D.C., because these people are still out there working. If they didn't help my dad, what's going to stop them from not doing it again?
Yeah, and Attorney Evans?
I would echo what Marie said. Let your city council members know that you are interested in this and that this is important, and to support our calls for change of the law to require firefighters and EMTs to help when you approach a fire station.
And let me add something. We've got a mayoral debate coming up. Mm-hmm. Two folk are going to be running. Mm-hmm. And again, excuse the language, ladies, but I'll be damned if this should not be at the top of every mayoral debate and discussion. I want to hear each of these candidates, what their position is and what their solution is. And the last thing I want to hear, it's being litigated. Because you can litigate all day long. The reality is that, and in the true spirit of Johnny Cochran, you can sit everybody down and come up with a solution, because you're right, Ms. Mills. You don't want this to happen again. This should not happen to anybody who is a citizen of this country or this town. So thank you so much for coming in, both of you, and we'll just stay in touch.
Okay, thank you so much for having us and announcing this issue.